pleasure to welcome our speaker today, Rev Elizabeth Stamper. Thank you so much for joining us today.
So thank you all for being here physically or virtually. And thank you to all of our invisible friends, right? Our guides and our angels and our ancestors and all those, all that energy. Just welcome that in. Breathe that in. We're so supported in ways that we can know deep in our heart and our spirit that we may not know with our physical senses. So taking another moment to just take some deep breaths. I like to think of pause, breathe, and settle. PBS, something to remember. PBS needs our support, but today, pause, breathe, and settle. So let's invite this busy mind to pause. And start following our breath. And maybe for the first few breaths, just breathe in really deeply through your nose. And then exhale out your mouth with a big sigh. Breathe in really deeply to make contact with your inner being. A beautiful core self. And exhaling is an emptying out. And in this way, let's settle a little bit more with every breath, settling down towards the earth, getting grounded, noticing the places in our body that tighten or tense or grip, and then just letting them release on the exhale. Breathe in, go into your heart, your beautiful heart. Exhale, let go, and settle. Thank you. I do that because I need that. And also, I thought PBS is easy to remember, right? So pause, breathe, settle. Do you know that when you're watching the Olympics and you watch the high diver climb up onto the platform and take his position or her position, and then before they do anything, they just pause? And it's almost like in that moment you can feel them get really centered and really present. There's nothing going on chattering up here. It's just that pause. And then, because they've done so much practice, hours and hours and years of practice, they can move forward into whatever their sport or their skill is. They can move forward from that centered place and just blow us all away, right, with what they do. So this morning I'm going to talk about is peace possible? And I am a believer. I choose that belief very strongly, very carefully. And I look for evidence to support my belief, because we're going to believe something even more when we find the evidence of it. And I tell you, I see a lot of evidence every day for the fact, the truth that we can evolve as a human species from warlike, contentious, small-minded, us versus them kind of thinking into this consciousness that is rooted in the, it's the same consciousness that we have admired throughout all ages in all the people we lift up. So Lord Buddha, Jesus, all the great teachers, all the great masters who are living in that state of whatever you want to call it, fundamental consciousness. It's just fundamental to all of us, pervasive, or unitive consciousness, the ground of our being. Our collective consciousness, meaning the sum total of all of us with how we're each being conscious in every moment, all day, every day. Our individual consciousnesses combined is what we call the collective consciousness. And for the world to be created that we would love to see in our best imagination, right? In our favorite dream of what the world could be, that world will be created as our collective consciousness becomes lifted up more and resonates more in alignment with that Christ consciousness. We have evidence on the planet that there are people walking around that are pretty awakened, and a whole lot of us who are on the path of awakening, of really waking up. So today I'm going to talk about that and try to recruit everybody in my belief system. But gently. I'll recruit you very gently. So first I'm going to tell a story about Father Gregory Boyle. Does anyone know that name? He's known as Father G. So Father G is a Jesuit priest. He's 71, and he grew up in Los Angeles, did a lot of training in Latin America, or a lot of his early years as a priest. But then he came back, and he was the pastor of the Catholic Church in the poorest area of LA in the late 80s through the 90s. And during that time, he saw, that was the time of the peak of the gang-related violence. In 1 year, 1992, there were 1,000 gang-related killings in that area, in that part of LA. And you know what the society has created and is working with, our criminal justice system, mass incarceration, it wasn't working. It wasn't, and his best efforts, Father G's best efforts to bring gang leaders together and create truces and whatnot, it wasn't working. And at one point with his congregation, with his parish, they talked about, let's try a different way. Let's try treating these gang members as human beings, relating to them as our equals, as our brothers, as our sisters. And so at one point, he was standing on a street corner in this area, this very poor, difficult area, Boyle's Heights, I think it's called, or I don't know what it's called, right? Near Chinatown. But he was standing on a street corner with someone from the LA area who was very wealthy, very, very wealthy, and had heard about Father Gregory and his passion to change things there. And the wealthy man said to Father Gregory, he said, so what can I do? And in that moment, Father G looked across the street at this big abandoned building, and he said, buy us that building. Help us make that into a center. And that was the birth of Homeboy Industries. The building was bought. What they have now, they have Homeboy Industries includes a big cafe. They've got, they have little stalls at the LA airport. They do t-shirt printing. They do all kinds of things. And at that center, there's the cafe, there's the bookstore, there's the rest of the building. They do job training, and they do tattoo removal, and they have like 40, 50 counselors who volunteer to work there and provide counseling. And a lot of the people that come there, they have lost hope, you know. And here's a place that says, you are welcome, you are wanted, and here's how we're going to have you have hope for your future. So interestingly, my son moved to LA, I think 12, 13 years ago, and I was on my way to visit him. I had heard about Homeboy Industries and Father Gregory from listening to a podcast, On Being podcast, and I had bought his book, Tattoos on the Heart, and on the plane I'm reading that book and I'm crying. It's so moving. And I get to the warehouse where my son is living with a bunch of other musicians, and we look up, where is this Homeboy Industries? It's 1 mile from where he lives. So of course we have to go there, and we go and get pastries from the cafe, and then we go into the bookstore and I buy some books, and the woman, and everywhere the energy was so high. And people were laughing and talking, and the energy was incredible. And the woman who's selling me this other book, she says, would you like Father G to sign this for you? And I'm like, sure. So we go out of the bookstore, down the little hall, we go into this other big space, which is where people just gather, and there's just so much going on. But Father G has, his office is fronting onto this big area, this big open area that's filled with people. And his office has a glass front. It's just kind of up to here, and then it's glass. So you can look right in, and he can look right out. And she says, what we do is we stand outside the door, because he's always got people in there. And if it's okay for us to come in, he'll see us through the window, and he'll do this, and you come in and sign your book. So this is what happened. We stood there. I'm looking at Father Gregory, like through the glass, about 12 feet ahead of me. And the room is lined with chairs, just people to people, you know, everywhere. It's so crowded, and everybody's smiling, and they're laughing. And Father G sees us and does this. We walk in, and he signs our stuff and just, you know, nods and says hello and say thank you, and we walk out. And I was so moved. You know, I was just speechless. And Chris, my son, wanted to talk about it. It's like, I can't talk right now. I just can't talk. We get into the van, we're driving back. It's like, Mom, you okay? He says, yeah, I'm fine. I can't talk. And I think it's like, there are living saints here on the planet right now, and I had just met one, and I knew it. And I knew it, and I felt that powerful presence that just pulled me in and gave me hope that we can change the world. I've also been in the presence, very lucky person, a couple of times of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And one time I was in an auditorium where he was the speaker, and it was, I think, at George Washington University. I'm in the second row. I had the worst cold that I've ever had. This is probably back in 97 or 96, worst cold. I'm just physically miserable. And he walks out and he sits down. He's the most casual, open, happy person you will ever be around. He's so happy. And that happiness is contagious. And he has us laughing. And I just remember leaving there with the same happiness just filling me. So thank you to all those people who do all the work and how many lifetimes to just become those lights on the planet that we need. So, how does peace happen? Well, first of all, it happens when each one of us commits to becoming peace. And we find the practices and the training and do the healing work that will help us experience more peace in our own inner being, in our own internal system. It's a long road, but it's worth it. It gets better. And then we need to, once we have this peace, practicing more peace inside ourselves and are committed to that, then we will notice, I really want peace in my relationships too. My personal, with the people closest to me, where it really matters, you know. I want peace in all my relationships. And then we take it out to this next level. So then there's the world. And what do we need for the world to come to peace? I think if there's enough individuals having enough beautiful relationships with their family and their friends and their community, they're doing that inner work, that spiritual practice, that healing, then they're motivated to become part of movements. I know people in this room are part of movements that then work together with other organizations, that peace happens on a global level when we can come together just as human beings from wherever we are in the world and gather with a shared intention, a shared desire, a shared purpose. And we have done the inner work, so we're not sitting across the table slamming our shoe on the table or ranting at each other or feeling the need for retribution or revenge or just protect my own, but we're looking with a sense of understanding the mutuality of our caring, our support. I like that word, mutuality. So beautiful. It's not going to happen without mutual support, mutual caring, mutual upliftment. So yes, I've already mentioned these things that we want to do. We want to do our spiritual practice every day, all day long. Not just the little time you sit here, the time you sit there. Lengthen those times of sitting, perhaps. Go on retreats. That really retrains the brain, being in an immersive environment, a retreat. Super healing, super good for the brain. And join with your community and do these things together. So there's spiritual practice. The inner healing work. You know, I could say that the spiritual practice unlocks what's already inside us. It unlocks our spiritual brilliance, the light. It unlocks our compassion and our courage and all these good things, right? Well, spiritual healing, any kind of healing, especially inner emotional healing, unblocks us, because wherever we're still carrying some remnant of our past, yeah, here's the counselor in me talking, some remnant of our past that's afraid, that's carrying trauma or burden, we're blocked then. We're blocked. We're not as free as we could be. So spiritual practice unlocks us. Our inner healing work, this unlocks us. Healing unblocks us. And then we have the power to choose, to imagine a different world, a better world. You know, in this choosing aspect, there's a few things, you know, that's important to remember when we're there are so many moments, so many instants every day, every hour, where we can do that pause I was talking about at the beginning and make a different choice. So I can have this interaction with my partner, right? That's just based on a little pattern, a little dance that we've created, the two of us together, where I get irritated at him about something, he gets irritated back. We're back in our dance, right? Or I get irritated, but maybe I don't say anything. I just keep it to myself, but I just kind of took a step back from him. So I want you all, anybody here ever been a skier, a snow skier? Okay. So for those of us who aren't skiers, so skiers, when you get to the top, let's say you get to the top of this mountain, it's covered with snow, and there's lots of paths down the mountain. There's lots of ways to go from where you are up here on the top to get down to the bottom, to let your skis just, you know, give you that ride. So what our brain is wired up to do is to take the path most traveled, the path of least resistance. So if you're a skier, the fastest way down the mountain is the path that you've gone down many times, or someone else has before you even gone down. And so it's a practice path, and it's smoothed out. It's more icy and smooth. It's going to be faster. Our brain is just like that. In every moment when there's a choice, we're at the top of the hill, and our brain's going to want us to go down that one, the one that it's practiced. Those neural pathways in our brain that have thought this way, had this thought, had this belief countless times before. It's going to go there. It's been trained to go there. It's been trained to go there. Not your fault that it goes there either, right? We took in everything when we were growing up from our family, schools, churches, culture. And that trained our brain. But there we are up there on the top of the mountain, taking that pause, taking that breath, settling. I'm going to settle. I'm going to settle down here. I'm going to come all the way down into my feet. I'm going to be that Olympian at the top of the hill. Pause. Breathe. Settle, and take a new path. It might be a path that I've started to practice. If any of you know anything about A Course in Miracles and many other spiritual paths, they will give us thoughts to practice, to retrain our brain. In The Course in Miracles, in the workbook, it has 365 lessons, one for every day of the year. First time I went through it took me 3.5 years to get through it. But it tells you right at the beginning of the workbook, it says, you're not going to want to do these practices, and they're just thoughts. All you do is you just say the thought, and you practice the thought. The first thoughts help us disentangle, cast doubt on the things that we think we know already, so we come back into beginner's mind, don't know mind. Those first lessons just disentangle us from the web up there. And then other thoughts like, I am the light of the world. I could choose peace in this moment. We practice those thoughts. And now we've got another pathway down that mountain. Isn't that cool? And we each have a lot of those lessons or thoughts, right? That we've come across that just, when you go back to that prayer, you go back to those words. And the more times we rehearse and practice the uplifting, why is it so beautiful and uplifting? Because it's truth, and something in us resonates with truth when we hear it, when we read it. So, last thing that I'm going to share with you is debating up until this moment whether I would try to do this or not. I wrote this poem maybe 15 or more years ago. And anyway, so have you ever stood knee-deep in the ocean with your head thrown back and you're gazing up through layer after layer after layer of the most amazing blue until something in you is drawn up and out, and it seems to merge with this something of everyone else, and that merging becomes a blanket of prayer. A blanket of prayer, a possible peace that encircles the earth and rains down blessings on everyone there. A blanket of prayer, just needed right now, right? A blanket of prayer to rain down its blessings and sustain our souls and maintain our hope as we're all gathered here in this little ocean, this ocean of life and emotion, of frantic commotion, the ups and downs and darks and lights. This welcoming, this asking of us to turn our compassion into action, and then to urge us to take this longest stride of soul we ever took, the longest stride of soul we ever took, and put all our small-minded views aside and sign up for this ride into a new world, a new and improved world where ideologies don't have to collide, where our planet can thrive, where our children can do more than just barely survive, but they can live safe and well-fed and happy and adored. Will you walk with me through that door? No more settling the score. No more settling the score. Even if we have to crawl on the floor to that place where war is no more and has no place on our shore or on any shore. So yeah, I'm talking about weapons into plowshares, and anger into mercy, and melancholy into music, and all emotion into art, and every terrible nightmare into a beautiful dream, in a world full of dreamers. Imagine that. Imagine that, a world full of dreamers. Because you're not the only one. No, you're not the only one. So here we all sit in this ocean with our hearts wide open and gazing into each other, and the love in us is drawn up and out, and it merges with the love of everyone else, becoming that blanket of prayer and that tangible peace. That blanket of prayer and that tangible peace to rain down blessings, sustain our souls, maintain our faith, and help us usher in a brand new, a brave new, and a beautiful new world. May it be so. Thank you.